8 years old, Mike. 8 years old, buddy. All she wanted to do was go home, have a little party for her friends because her mom just redecorated her room for her. That's pure evil, bud. So it's nice meeting you, Mikey. Enjoy the rest of your life. This is the kind of room you're going to be spending it in.
On Wednesday, April 8, 2009, classes were dismissed for the day at Oliver Stevens Elementary School at exactly 3:25 p.m. Within minutes after the bell rang, all students left school for the day, and they all made it home that night, except for one of them. Her name was Tori Stafford, an 8-year-old girl who'd recently moved to the neighborhood, along with her mother, Tara McDonald, and her older brother, 10-year-old Darren. Victoria, or Tori as she was known to her friends and family, usually walked home with her older brother, but this would be the first time she'd walk home alone, since their new home was just a few blocks away from the school. By 6:04 p.m. that evening, Tori's mother called the police to report her daughter missing. Officers were dispatched to the house and started investigating right away. At first, they found it odd that Tara waited over 2 hours to report her 8-year-old daughter missing and asked her why that was. Tara told them that when she noticed Tori hadn't come home when she was supposed to, she started calling friends and family asking if they'd seen her, but nobody knew where she was. Tara says that she left the house and drove through the streets with her mother looking for Tori, but there was no sign of her. By the time they returned home, it was already past 6 p.m., and that's when they decided to call the police. The first thing detectives did was to gather information about Tori and her family. As they continued questioning her mother, officers went over to the school to see what they could gather from there. Teachers at the school described Tori as caring and full of life, and said she was kind of like a mother hen to a lot of the younger kids in the class. She always wanted to help. Tori's grandmother later said that she was like a little pistol. By all accounts, Tori was energetic and compassionate, a happy-go-lucky type of girl, but she didn't exactly have an ideal life at home. Tori lived with her mother and her older brother Darren, but rarely got to see her father since her parents separated 6 years prior. Tori's father, Rodney Stafford, was reportedly often absent and wasn't very involved in his children's lives. In fact, Rodney had recently made plans to see Tori for the first time in 6 months, the very next day after she went missing. Police quickly obtained a search warrant for Rodney Stafford and searched his home, but found nothing. It was getting late, and there was still no sign of Tori. By the next day, detectives were able to obtain CCTV footage from a nearby school. One of the cameras at the school was pointed in the direction of Tori's school, toward the main entrance of the building, so it should have captured something. Tori's teacher told officers that most of the students had already left by 3:30 p.m., but Tori left a little late because she went back to her class to grab her butterfly earrings that she left behind. At 3:32, someone can be seen walking away from the main entrance. As they continue walking down the street, it becomes apparent that they're walking with a child. Based on descriptions they've gathered, detectives determined that the child is, in fact, Tori. Police were able to get the footage enhanced and played it over and over again. The adult walking with Tori seems to be holding her hand as they lead her away from the school. Police initially suspected Tori's mother, Tara, to be the person in the video, and were still suspicious of the fact that she didn't report her missing for over 2 hours after she was supposed to be home. Both Tara and her ex-husband Rodney were given lie detector tests. Both of them passed, and they both seemed to be sincerely worried about their daughter. It's looking more and more likely that this might be a case of abduction. Police took the footage to the school to see if anyone caught a glimpse of the suspected kidnapper. After questioning teachers and parents who were there that day, detectives were able to come up with a composite sketch. The person was described as a white woman between the ages of 19 and 25, about 5 feet 2 inches tall, and weighing about 125 pounds. The sketch was released to the public, asking the woman to come forward to the police, and Tori's grandparents offered a $10,000 reward for Tori's return. The case quickly garnered a lot of attention, and the city of Woodstock was mobilized. Residents in the small city were on a mission to track down Tori. A Facebook group dedicated to finding her went live, and in a city of less than 50,000 residents, it gained over 20,000 followers within 24 hours. Community members held a candlelight vigil for Tori, which saw hundreds of attendees, and local news stations had wall-to-wall coverage on the case, with her parents making regular appearances on camera, pleading for someone to come forward. But after several days, there were no clues and no leads, and the search was eventually called off. What started as a missing persons investigation by local law enforcement was now handed over to Ontario police and was switched to an abduction investigation. It's been over a month since Tori had been abducted, and police still have no clue who took her. Thankfully, the public still hasn't lost interest in the story, and local news outlets were still reporting on it regularly. In fact, public interest in the case only grew, and every detail was coming under heavy scrutiny. People started to wonder why an Amber Alert was never issued despite clear indications that Tori was likely abducted.
It's a high priority call. We do not have enough information at this point to support an Amber Alert. It does not meet the criteria at all, and we have no information with the three criteria it has to meet. None of those have been met, so it's not an Amber Alert at this point. The criteria for Ontario Amber Alert are very specific, involving number one, a confirmed abduction. All right, that's not the case in this situation. Law enforcement agency also has to believe that the circumstances surrounding the abduction indicate that the child's in danger of serious bodily harm or death, and there has to be enough descriptive information about the child or the abductee or the suspect's vehicle to necessitate an immediate broadcast. We don't have that criteria at all.
Personal details about Tori's family were also leaked to the public. People found out about Tori's father's lack of involvement in his children's lives and started to suspect him of having something to do with her disappearance. Tori's mother, Tara, wasn't spared either. Word eventually spread around Woodstock about a bad habit that Tara tried to keep secret. It came out that Tara was apparently hooked on prescription painkillers and went to a methadone clinic multiple times a week to help treat her addiction. Suspicions surrounding both of Tori's parents started to grow, and the public started to focus on them. Despite this, they both continued to regularly meet with the press, asking for someone to come forward, and all the public pressure started to raise tensions between them, eventually reaching a boiling point on live TV.
People have said, I don't come out here and bawl and cry in front of the cameras and carry on. And, there was somebody who put their kids in their car seats and drove into a lake with their kids, and they went out there and bawled and cried and carried on, and they were the person who was responsible for it. I'm just not the kind of person that can come out here and cry for the cameras every single day.
Well, what are you kind of saying? Because I was crying and showing my emotions and stuff, I'm behind this?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
that's the way I took what you just said.
No, I'm saying that people get angry because I don't come out here and I can't cry in front of cameras. And so people are holding that against me and saying that, she's acting this way, so she must have something to do with it. That's just the way that I am. I can't come out here and open up for a bunch of strangers, and if people can't understand that, then...
Sorry, this is making me really frustrated, Tara, because this is your daughter. It doesn't matter who should be standing in front of you. I could have the world standing here and I would cry. I wouldn't care. Tori is missing.
Ronnie, I'm not going to stand here and fight with you about it, okay?
You know what? From now on, any of these press conferences, okay, if you want to do them, continue them. I will do mine elsewhere because, no, you are showing a total lack of support for your daughter.
You know what? You want to talk about a lack of support for my daughter? Where the hell were you for the last 9 years?
Okay.
Where were you for the last 9 years?
Check every one of these cameras, every one of these media, every one of those police officers.
You've been at them now, but where were you for the last 9 years?
I have told them everything from the beginning. Yeah, walk away like usual, Tara.
The one who fucks King walks away.
Yeah.
Rodney, you come back.
Just a few days after this interview, law enforcement would get a major unexpected break in the case. On May 19th, someone came forward to the police and said that they saw the composite sketch on the news and were pretty sure they knew who it was. The name they gave was Terry Lynn McClintock. Terry, who was 18 years old at the time, was born to a stripper in Woodstock in 1990. Her mother didn't want her and gave her away to another stripper by the name of Carol McClintock. Carol gave her name and raised her as her own daughter. According to her friends and family, Terry Lynn had a very troubled childhood growing up and was assaulted and abused. When she was young, she microwaved a small dog until it started screaming and howling. The dog survived, but had to be put down due to its pain and injuries. Taking pleasure in torturing animals is a major indicator that a child will grow to be a violent criminal and is a common trait among serial killers. Tori Lynn eventually dropped out of school when she reached 8th grade and found herself doing heavy drugs to the point where she OD'd multiple times. By the time Tori became an adult, she and her mother were both hooked on prescription painkillers and often sold them. It would later come out that Tori's mother, Tara, had actually visited their house at one point to buy pills from them. Tori was also involved in the search effort to find Tori and handed out missing flyers to people on the street. As luck would have it, Tori was already in custody for violating her probation in relation to a previous drug conviction. Detectives had her transferred to the Ontario Police Headquarters and brought her into an interview room for questioning. At first, she denies being the woman in the video and claims to know nothing about the missing girl. But about 45 minutes into the interview, she caves.
When I seen with Tori on his lap, I turned my head because I didn't want to see it. I could hear her calling my name.
Tell me what happened.
Tori McClintock says that on April 8th, she was dropped off near Oliver Stevens Elementary School by a man who asked her to lure a young girl back to the car. After watching all the children get picked up by their parents, she spotted a little girl leaving the school all alone. It was 8-year-old Tori Stafford. McClintock says that she started a conversation with her, telling her that she had a little puppy and offered to show her the puppy back in the car. Tori agreed, and McClintock grabbed her by the hand as she led her back to the car, which was waiting nearby. When McClintock opens the rear door, Tori sees that there's no puppy and senses that something isn't right. When Tori turns to walk away, McClintock suddenly grabs her and drags her into the car. Sitting up front in the driver's seat was 28-year-old Michael Rafferty. More on him in a minute. The three of them got onto Highway 401 and headed east toward Ontario 12. Rafferty removed the battery from his phone so his location couldn't be tracked. He turned on the radio and listened for any reports of a missing girl, but there was nothing yet. Rafferty and McClintock made 3 stops before their final destination with Tori. First, they stopped by Tim Hortons, a coffee shop. Rafferty parked the car and went inside. McClintock stayed behind with Tori but ordered a tea for the road. Next, Rafferty stopped by a drug dealer's house to pick up some OxyContin. Then, with Tori still crouched in the back seat with Tori McClintock, they stopped at a Home Depot to pick up some tools. Rafferty told Tori Lynn what to buy and handed her cash.
She wanted a claw hammer, a garbage bags, box of garbage bags. I was really contemplating whether or not I wanted back up to the vehicle I got. The biggest reason for going back to the vehicle was because Tori was there, and at least while I was there, I could at least make it somewhat better for her.
McClintock sobs the whole time as she recalls the events of that day. But as soon as the officer steps out to get her some tissues, the sobbing stops, and she grabs her coffee to take a sip. As she hears the officer coming back in, she goes back to wiping her eyes. As the officer continues probing McClintock, detectives start looking into the person she claims was her accomplice, Michael Rafferty. Michael didn't have the best character, to say the least. In fact, the more police learned about him, the more disturbed they were. Michael was unemployed for most of his adult life, but always managed to be seen in new clothes, according to one of his friends. He reportedly spent most of his time chasing women, attending speed dating events and meeting women online, and even had a profile on a Christian dating website. The women he dated varied widely in age, from teenagers all the way up to a 50-year-old. One of his girlfriends would later testify that he pimped her out and that all the money she made would go straight to him. Michael's promiscuity likely led him to catch a disease in 2006, when his search history shows that he Googled things like severe genital herpes and images of people with genital herpes. Michael was also a compulsive liar. Each person who was asked about him described him as a completely different person. To some, Michael was a dance instructor who attended school and had just tragically lost a stepson. To others, he owned a contracting company and had just bought his mother a house right before he found out he had colon cancer, none of which were true. That was the side of Michael that people knew. There was another, more disturbing side of him that very few people knew about. It would later be revealed that Michael was sadistic and had an affinity for young children. A forensic search of his computer showed that he downloaded 17 gigabytes worth of snuff films and child pornography. A few of the women he dated told police that they found his interest in their children to be disturbing. One of the women, by the name of Simone, sat with police and recalled an online conversation she had with Michael that she found to be especially disturbing. Michael reportedly asked Simone if her daughter, who was still in a crib, would, quote, snuggle up with us tonight. In another conversation, he asked Simone if she would give him her firstborn child. In the days leading up to Tori's abduction, Michael's search history showed that he Googled things like children for sale and sale of babies. Michael Rafferty was tracked down and arrested. Almost immediately upon entering the interrogation room, he curls up under a blanket and starts quivering and crying.
My job is to determine the risk. Okay, what's the risk of a certain situation? The situation that we're talking about is you're going to find here that there's nothing you're going to tell me to surprise me. Okay, for two reasons. One, I've heard a lot of this stuff before. The second reason is I'm fortunate enough to know what all the case facts are. Okay, so what I have to do is assess what I perceive is a threat. So are you going to go out and kill more people after this situation's done? Okay, that's what my job is, to assess threat level. All right, I already know you're responsible for one death. Okay, so that's what my job is to determine, okay, what's happened here. All right.
The detective continues talking as Rafferty sits quietly and sniffles the whole time. But about 15 minutes in, he gets him to say something.
Like I say, this may have been a thing that you just snapped and did something. That stuff happens. Or it may have been something you planned for many months and got some enjoyment out of the plan.
I didn't do anything.
Well, that's not entirely true.
That is entirely true. I didn't do anything.
No, you can try and cement yourself into that, okay? But at the same time, you're not doing yourself any good by not being truthful here, okay? Because by not being truthful, all you have left is your credibility, Mike. That's all you have left.
Over the course of the next hour and a half, Rafferty continues to sit quietly, only speaking to say that he didn't do it. Detectives try a different approach. They opt to go with the good cop, bad cop routine and send in the bad cop.
I understand Mike here wanted to see what Terry Lynn had to say. Mike, Terry Lynn's still speaking to my partner, okay? This is the girl you killed, all right? She's not missing anymore. She's dead. Terry Lynn was asked today if she wanted to call a lawyer 4 times. She said no, all 4 times. She went through 2 boxes of Kleenex. All right? She says on the 8th of April, Wednesday the 8th of April, 2009, at 3:30 in the afternoon, you drop her off at Pavey, south of Fife, south of the public school, where Tori walks out of. You tell her to get a girl, and you want her young. She walks up the street, you drive up to the old age home and you park your car. She walks up to Tori. Tori's nice to her. She trusts her. She holds her hand for a little bit. She walks up the street with her. Terry Lynn tells her about her little dog, gets her across the street to your car, opens the back door. Tori doesn't like it anymore. She pushes her in the car. You start driving. She says she's freaking out. She says she's worried about you. She's scared about what you're going to do. She says you guys hit the 401. You start driving to Guelph. You park outside a house. You go in for a little while. You come out with some drugs, she thinks. And you drive to the Home Depot. You park at the end of the parking lot. You tell her it's her turn to get out of the car. You tell her to go in there. You give her some cash because you don't want to use your debit card so you don't track it. She goes in there. She gets garbage bags like she's told to do, and she comes back out. Then you go driving. And you pull into a farmer's field right across from a house to the point where you're even asking her if anybody can see you. And what does she do? She says she goes for a walk. She doesn't want to see what happens. And then she comes back. And you're not sitting in the front seat anymore, Mike. You're sitting in the back seat. And she's not liking what she sees. So she walks away again. Then she comes back, and you make her hold one of those garbage bags while you put some of your clothes, her jacket, and hammer in the garbage bag. Then you drive to a gas station. She never sees Tori again. You drive to that gas station, you get out, you wash up, you dump the bag. You drive back to Woodstock. That's Terry Lynn's story, Mike. That's Terry Lynn's story while she bawls her eyes out through 2 boxes of Kleenex And I asked her 4 times, hey, you want to call a lawyer? She says, I don't need to call a lawyer. I feel so bad about what happened. I just want to tell you all about it. That's what you're up against.
Terry Lynn's a liar.
Well, you're the only person that can tell us that, but
I just did.
You gotta be careful, Mike, because some of the shit she said is backed by not just video but other evidence. That's a little more graphic than I said it, but yeah, there is some stuff that she says that is true. There's no question. I'm not gonna say it's not. But,
how old are you, Mike? 28 years old? Get rid of your fucking security blanket and start being a man. Because it's not going to be her semen that we find on her body. When we look at the areas underneath the parts of the seat that you cut out, we're going to find her blood. Skin cells from her rubbing up and down against your seats in your car. Tori Stafford is all over your car. And Terry Lynn explains everything that she knows we're going to find. You're explaining nothing. So I don't give a fuck if you say one more word, tell you the truth.
All right, we're done then.
Well, I'm done with you anyway.
Okay.
This officer here is trying to understand what the hell you're going through. I don't care.
Who are you?
I'm the lead investigator here.
Okay.
Okay?
Terry Lynn's full of shit.
Well, that's going to be a funny thing for you to say in court, isn't it? Because how's the DNA going to be full of shit, Mike? Huh? How's the biologist from the Center for Forensic Sciences going to be full of shit? How's the pathologist that examines her body going to be full of shit? I'm done with him. This officer's got his job to do, Mike. He's got a different job than I do. For my investigation, you keeping your mouth shut is the best thing can happen. So keep on keeping it shut.
Okay.
With the bad cop now out of the room, detectives hope that Rafferty will be relieved and open up.
what he's saying is right. Like I did watch what she was saying. She was very emotional. There's no question. And she did go through Kleenex. There's no question of that. But like I say, this is your chance. This is your chance to say your piece. And I'm sitting here willing to listen to it.
Well, he just told me not to say anything more, so...
That's up to you, because I'm still interested in listening to you. You want to talk about the part of the school where she's grabbed? We can discuss that and see what your thoughts are there.
I'm not saying anymore.
The good cop, bad cop routine doesn't work, and Rafferty clams shut. It's looking less and less likely that he's going to confess to anything, but detectives have one more trick up their sleeve. They bring in Terry Lynn and make him tell her to her face that she's a liar.
This is your opportunity. Terry Lynn's sitting right here. Tell us she's a liar. You've had no problem at saying it without her in the room.
Terry's a liar.
That's what you're hoping.
I'm not even looking at her.
I don't need to look at her.
You haven't been looking at anyone.
I don't need to look at anyone.
Almost 3 hours into the interview, it becomes clear that Rafferty made up his mind and isn't going to talk. Michael Rafferty was held without bond. About a month after his interview, police discovered Tori Stafford's decomposing body dumped in a secluded field. The only things she had on were her Hannah Montana t-shirt and her butterfly earrings. She was naked from the waist down, and the lower half of her body was heavily decomposed. The medical examiner determined that Tori had suffered a beating which caused lacerations to her liver and 16 broken ribs. Tori's death was ruled a homicide as a result of repeated blows to the head with a claw hammer. Michael Rafferty and Terry Lynn McClintock were tried separately. McClintock initially claimed that it was Rafferty who killed Tori, but later recanted her statement and admitted to killing her herself. She pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was handed a life sentence with a possibility of parole after 25 years. She was sent to serve her sentence in a federal prison, but in 2018, McClintock was transferred to an unfenced, low-security healing lodge run by the Correctional Service of Canada. She was granted the move because she self-identified as an Indigenous person, which has been disputed by her family. This enraged Tori's family, and after widespread public outcry, the federal government reversed the move and sent her back to federal prison. Terry Lynn McClintock is currently serving her time in the Grand Valley Institution for Women in Ontario and won't be eligible for parole until 2035 at the age of 44. Michael Rafferty was charged with kidnapping, sexual assault, and first-degree murder. He pleaded not guilty, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Over the course of 21 weeks, the jury was presented with witness testimony, evidence found on his electronic devices, hours of surveillance video, and forensic evidence showing that Tori's blood was in his car mixed with his own DNA. It took the jury just 1 day to find him guilty on all counts. Rafferty was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Michael Rafferty is currently housed in La Macasa Institution in Quebec and won't be eligible for parole until 2037 when he's 56 years old.